We're now live.
Welcome, everyone. It is the February 4th Academic Standards meeting, and our topic tonight is a technology update, which will be presented by Matt Fredrickson.
We're good. Multi-talented. Multi-talented. So what I'd like to do this evening, it's been a long time since I've done this. I'm going to give an overview of the technology department itself. These are the people that keep the nuts and bolts, the computers, the desktops working, and all of that good stuff. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology committee, where we're at in the process, some of the things we have coming up. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategic plan in terms of what we have on the table to occur in the course of the next year or two. During this, it's a conversational presentation, so if you have any questions, please jump in. So the department itself, there are 10 people in the department, including myself. I have 5 network technicians. Now, these are the people that do desktop support. In most other districts, they're desktop support people. They have desktop support people, and then they have people that handle enterprise systems. We don't have that differentiation. So our network technicians do both. They do the desktop support. If someone's having a problem with software application, or computers need to be imaged, or any of that good stuff, they handle that. They also handle some of the enterprise applications. Like we use a product called SCCM from Microsoft. We use that to image the computers. What that means is if a new piece of software comes out or there's a critical update that needs to be applied, you can create what's called a package and deploy it to all the computers in the district overnight. So we don't actually have to touch the machines. It's a great way, it saves us a lot of time. It also has some utilities that allow us to connect to the workstations. If users having a problem, and say the technicians in Sulphidestone, and the problem is at Hillcrest, they can remote to that desktop, work with the teacher, they don't actually physically have to go there. That's allowed us to really streamline our processes.
So do the technicians, though, have part of their scheduling to visit the schools?
Oh, absolutely.
So is that like a set routine, like they'll be at a school on some regular schedule?
No, it's based on the number of tickets that they get. Each technician is responsible for a particular building. So,
well, I guess each technician is responsible for multiple buildings.
Correct, for multiple buildings. And what they do is they'll either work out a schedule with the principal if they want them there a particular day, but most of the time it's ticket driven, or there's a device that needs to be updated, or a lab that needs to be updated. So they're not on a fixed schedule, so they can go to the building based on the needs. But they do touch base with all the buildings at least once a week.
And what's the average length of time before a ticket is entered?
4.5 hours.
Well, why so slow, Matt?
It was 22 days when we first started. So I think 4.5 hours for the district this size. If you think about it, we support about 13,000 users on a daily basis. So I think 4.5 hours is pretty good.
I'm kidding you.
We have one individual who's just desktop support half of his time. And then the other half of the time, he does all of the repair stuff. Because we refresh the computers about every 4 years, the break fix-it are mostly kids popping keys off keyboards. We have an occasional hard drive go. But because they're under warranty, we have them certified with the vendor. So he can call the vendor and order the part. He doesn't have to go through the what happened, what went wrong. He's a certified repair tech. So he can just call over the parts and then replace them. It's much more efficient that way. And in fact, when we do the Dell equipment, we usually get a $250 and $300 check at the end of the year rebate, because Dell hasn't had to spend time on their end to troubleshoot the computers. So it works out. It covers the cost of getting them certified as a repair tech. We have a telecommunications specialist. She handles all the websites and works with the webmasters in each of the buildings. Each of the buildings has a webmaster. Now it's a teacher who's responsible for the website. Some of the schools have split that responsibility up across a couple of individuals, but the teachers, if they're working on their web pages and have an issue, they go to the building webmaster first for help. And then if the building webmaster can't help them, then they go to this person, and she helps them out. She does work with teachers if they have special projects. She also works with the PTOs, because the PTOs have sites, and she works with some of the community people. She's responsible for the scheduling of CRTV. A lot of people ask me why I'm showing plays and all of that good stuff on TV, and it's copyright. So when they purchase the license to do a play, they don't purchase the license to rebroadcast that play over television. It's a different license and it's very expensive. So we never purchased that license. Now,
Can we rebroadcast concerts?
It includes concerts. Everything that we do, with the exception of sporting events, we can't do without a broadcast license. It's a different medium. Yeah, some districts don't pay any attention to that. Some of them have been sought with fines, some of them haven't been sought with fines. We just don't want to take that chance.
Where are we with the switch over to our new webs?
We're in the final stages of the layout. Finalizing the layout, we've gone through a couple of iterations. When you roll out a new web page, you can only do it once. So we want to make sure we have it right before we roll it out to the staff and before we roll it out to the community. So we've got a lot of feedback from a couple of different individuals on the design, and we're in the final stages of finalizing that. So probably within the next couple of weeks, we'll announce to the staff, hey, the design's ready, here's our rollout schedule, and when the training's going to be for them. We want them to have hands-on time working on it before the end of the school year, because as of July 1, we're on the new website.
So that timeframe hasn't changed?
No.
Well, I guess it can't change, right?
No, it can't, because as of June 30th, midnight, school hours is taking its name.
Right.
So, I have an administrative assistant, and she does a lot more than just answer the phones and do the purchase orders. She provides first line support for all of the secretaries, building secretaries, and administrative secretaries. She helps them with software if they have a question about Excel, Microsoft Word, or PowerPoint. She helps them with that. She works with them with Adobe, so she handles that training for them. She does 1 or 2 workshops a year for the secretaries. She also does phone support. We have an enterprise-wide phone system, and she'll handle the programming of the phones for me, basic programming, adds, moves, changes, that sort of thing. So, and she does a lot more little technical things here and there. She's very, very technical.
Do the webmasters at the schools get time off or compensation or
They get EDDRT,
EDR?
but that's all they get.
Do you know how many hours they put in?
The average webmaster at a school probably puts in, I would say, anywhere between 15 and 20 hours a month. Some schools, it's a lot more. Some schools, it's a lot less. No, it's not less, but it's a lot more. The high schools, they put in a lot more. I think both of the high schools actually have 2 webmasters because it's so much, there's so much to it. I have a network manager. It's Joanne. You might have seen her once or twice. I asked her to come aboard just so you guys can know. She's kind of like my number 2 person. When I'm not around, she handles things. On the day-to-day basis, she's responsible. All the technicians report to her, so she handles the ticket workload. She also manages all of the backups and the Exchange or email server. She also does a lot of the configuration on some of the servers. We kind of split that load. So, and she's my backup when it comes to the network stuff. I program all the switches and all the buildings, and when there's an issue, she's my backup for that. So, I manage all the, we make the decisions and all that stuff. It's a very dynamic organization. We meet every 2 weeks for an hour or so over our branding knowledge. It's very nice. And, our focus is making sure that the teachers have the tools they need when they need them to do what they need to do. It's kind of our mantra. This is a very hard to read diagram. I am sharing the slide deck, hopefully it'll get published. Basically what this shows you is a logical configuration of our network. So each of these represents a building, and it tells you how many desktops, laptops, how many iPads or mobile, tablet devices are in the building, how many switches and how many access points. This is a Excel spreadsheet with the same information, a little bit better.
Does that include PTO provided?
It does not. Well, let me rephrase that. It probably does include some of those devices, but those devices aren't included in the refresh. So if PTO buys like a part of iPads for the school, when they're no longer serviceable, they go away. I do not replace them. So this list contains just the stuff that the district has purchased and just the stuff that we're responsible for. So the bottom line is we have about 3,100 desktops, close to 1,800 laptops. We still have 127 netbooks. Remember when netbooks came out a few years ago? That would be the best thing. They didn't last very long. They've kind of been replaced with Chromebooks, and I'm going to talk about Chromebooks in a little bit. We have about 1,000 tablet devices, iPads and Surfaces, and we have a few Android tablets out there. We have about 238 switches in the buildings. We have about 312 access points throughout the district. Now, from a wireless standpoint, Both of the high schools are now wired, we can put an access point in every classroom. We have enough to put in every classroom. We still have about 20 to 25 at each high school that have not been installed yet because they haven't been needed. But we have them there, we'll probably put them in over spring break or the summer so that every classroom is high schools. The middle schools will be taken care of when they get built, so we're not spending any money on their infrastructure. And I have 7 elementary schools that still need to be wired for every classroom. What we did this summer is we beefed up the access points at Hillcrest, and I think Wallen Hills was the other building that we beefed them up. So all of the buildings are functioning, they just don't have an access point in every classroom. So we know that moving forward, we want to provide that capability, we're just not there yet.
So do you have a breakdown of users of those devices?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Like special education, some of them have a one-on-one, some of them, I'm sure, are staff. Some of them, I'm sure, are
I do have a breakdown.
belong in a place and stay in a place.
I do have a breakdown in terms of inventory of where they're located in the buildings, but the primary users, like, I'll give you a perfect example. In the high schools, every classroom in the high school has a desktop. You could walk into a classroom and ask a teacher, how many students spend time on that desktop, and the teacher could say none. You could walk in the next classroom and say, well, I've got kids on it every classroom. It depends on the dynamics of what they're doing in that classroom. And I would say every teacher in the district at some point or another has had students work on that computer. That's why when we set the machines up, they're set up so that any user can log on to any device based on who they are is what they see and what they have access to. So I don't track actual usage, except to know, I look at performance on machines, and that's what I use to help me decide what gets refreshed every year.
Does the high school have a computer for the teacher and then one for the class? Or
No.
just one?
There's just one computer in every class.
Okay. So do the teachers provide their own devices?
You mean they bring their own equipment?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. They have the ability to do that. There are 1 or 2 teachers that are bringing in their own laptops and whatnot because they do a lot of work at home and they transfer files or whatever. But not to my
The district
knowledge.
provides for like secretaries, administrators,
Yes.
I don't know who else. And I was wondering how many of those, and I know a lot of kids have an IEP where they have a device as part of their IEP. So that device really isn't usable to anybody else. A device for a teacher isn't really usable for a student. And I was wondering if you've ever pulled out that number.
I've done a student ratio. Our student accessible machines to students is about 3.6 to 1. So
Does that include that whole number?
that includes these. If you look at these numbers, if I were to break these numbers out and look at just the machines that are primarily for students to use, we're about 3.6 to 1. So the goal, there's a couple of different organizations in the United States that look at, COSID is one of them, and they look at ratios, ISTE's another, they put out studies of what the ratio of computing devices to students should be in an educational environment, and they say that it should be 4 to 1. So we're slightly under that, we're slightly better than that. So, but that's been our target. We want to stay around the 4 to 1 ratio.
But a school that has a computer room, a library, computer room, and every school is provided by the district with 2 laptop carts in the elementary level,
Mm-hmm.
they can't possibly have anywhere near that ratio.
When you look at the population of students versus the computing devices, they do.
Like Goodenough has over 800 kids. Or
Well, I haven't done the calculations probably in a year and a half, and I can redo them based on, adjustments to population. But I look at average district-wide. I hadn't looked at specific building. Because some of those could be over, some of those could be under. I look at district-wide.
The couple of things popping out at me is the number of tablets at Goodenough.
They have a big autistic
So, I mean, that's the thing, so we don't, it's not attributable to You never had it.
I don't break it down by, no, that's not how I track it. Just when I'm looking at these numbers, I'm looking at in terms of rollovers and supporting. I haven't broken it down by usage. I mean, Chuck has a young woman, a young lady that works for him called Suzanne Loftus. She tracks all of the devices for the specials.
Right. But I mean, even with Goodnow having that population, I mean, they have, 3 times as many tablets as any other school. The other thing that's interesting to me is how many more devices North has than South overall. So, I mean, is there ever, and it like, does equipment, do you ever like do like a sort of global view and say, oh, we need to be moving things around, or does it just sort of stay?
Yeah, we did that about 6 years ago. South had, one of the high schools had a preponderance. They had more laptop carts than the other high school. We moved laptop carts from high schools to another school. I can't remember which one it was. And the principals were fine with that. We went through the process. We did redistribute some of them because they weren't being used in all of the different areas that they had requested. Remember that we went through this process a few years ago. Was it something for the future? I can't remember what that process was.
State.
It was a state grant. It was a 3-year program. We had a
Classrooms for the future.
Classrooms for the future. Thank you. At the time, Larry Klein worked there. He was the supervisor of instructional technology, and he was very tight with people at the state. So we got equipment every single year, and we got a lot of equipment every single year. So we're slowly weaning that off. As those machines die, they're not being replaced. So last year was actually, was that the second last year when we did it? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, last year was the last year we got replaced.
So I understand you don't refresh devices given by PTOs, but also principals, a lot of them provide devices from their principal's budget. Are they refreshed?
That's negotiated, generally no. But I'll give you an example. Newtown Middle School, right?
Most of the middle schools, I think, the principals.
Newtown Middle School decided, and this was based on a whole factor of reasons, and this was over a 2-year period. Tim decided that he needed to add a computer lab at his building, and he actually paid for the computers when they set the lab up. That was a collaboration. Facilities covered the cost of the wiring, we covered the cost of the switches, Tim covered the cost of the PCs, but those machines were worked into the lease, and they will be refreshed in 4 years. Because the educational needs, I mean, this isn't static, this isn't moving target as far as I'm concerned, because every year the needs in the building shift and change, and it's a negotiations process. I have a fixed number. When I started 12 years ago, Larry had gotten a spreadsheet that the board had approved 4 or 5 years before that, and it was a fixed number per building, and that's all we were refreshing. And it took me a while, actually, when Mark became superintendent, he and I sat down and through that at length, and we decided that that wasn't going to work. That we had to continually modify it based on the needs of the buildings.
And how long has the district been without that position and the other one that Larry Klein filled?
Larry was only ever in one position. And
But there were 2 of them in that position. No.
No, those are the
2
technology
instructional.
integration specialists. And do you remember the year we had the $14 million deficit in budget?
I don't know what year that was.
That was
That's what I'm asking.
2009.
2009? That's the year those positions were limited.
Okay. And how long has the district been without a computer/math specialist for every elementary school?
I should answer that question, I have no idea.
Okay. Because they've had no curriculum since then.
I'm going to get to the curriculum in a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
So, one of the things that people don't realize is that IT as a organization has only been around since the 80s. So when you look at accounting, it's been around since the pyramids. So there are standards and best practices that have been developed for that most accountants follow. Well, there are actually standards and frameworks for IT service management as well. IDO is probably the most popular. It's a worldwide standard. It was created during the late 80s in the British government. It's been adopted worldwide for IT service organizations. I've implemented several of the processes from IDO into the organization. It's one of the things, it's one of the ways we've been able to go from 22 days to 4.5 hours for tickets. It's one of the ways we're able to manage 13,000 users on a daily basis with our tenants, because we've implemented a lot of these processes. Includes a service catalog, which you guys have all seen. I've given it to you. For our help desk, we use a big web desk ticketing system. The price of the software has actually gone down as the number of students has decreased. So it's email-based. So a teacher goes to a website, fills out a ticket. As soon as they complete it, the technician who's responsible for that building gets that ticket. They can prioritize it based on the needs, decide whether they need to go there. They can support them remotely or send them a ticket. When the technician responds to it, the email automatically goes back to the teacher. So there's a constant back and forth, and it stores the information. The technicians also use this as a knowledge base. When they're having a problem, they can search this database of information and see if they could have this problem before. From a security standpoint, a couple of years ago, we had a security audit. Since then, we've implemented the 20 critical cybersecurity controls. This is a framework that was put together by a couple of different organizations. It's now being maintained by an international organization, and it calls for defense and monitoring in depth. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the security, because that's not a good idea publicly. But if any of you have any questions and want like a one-on-one, I can go on the line. When it comes to budgeting, I use a couple of different things when I'm going through to determine what I spend the money on. One of them is called Val IT. It's the code framework from ISACA. ISACA are a bunch of bean counters who are on technology. They got together and came up with the standards. The great standards. What I love about Val IT is it makes you ask 4 questions. Are we doing the right things? Are we doing them the right way? Are we getting them done well? And are we getting the benefits? So whenever I spend money, I always ask these same 4 questions, whether it's renewing something or it's proposing something new. Because in this environment, you can't buy something with the expectation I'm going to be able to replace it in 3 years or 5 years. I got to think about, on all of the things that I have to spend money on, how can I get the most bang for my buck? And that's one of the things that I do when I'm looking through these. I also use a concept called value inventory. What that does is it takes the service catalog, the services that the department provides, and it looks at the equipment that's necessary to support those services. So I'm not buying equipment that the department doesn't really need, the district doesn't really need. It's a great operation framework. Current infrastructure, I won't spend a lot of time on this because it's probably boring to most of you. Right now we're at gig between each of the buildings. We're in the process of upgrading to 10 gig. That'll start sometime this year. It'll probably start at the high schools first because their infrastructure is probably ready to support it first. But we'll be doing it as we can in each of the buildings. We're going to be replacing the core switch equipment. It's actually on the agenda tonight. What's really cool about that is we went through E-rate. E-rate is that federal service charge you pay on your phone bill every month. That goes into a bucket. And then the FCC decides how that money can be reimbursed to public school districts and public libraries. In the past, we've applied for reimbursement for our phone service. That's no longer covered. Now E-rate covers core equipment like our switches, which has never been covered in the past. So this is the first time we've done this, and it's pretty cool. We are eligible to receive up to 40% of the cost of what we spend. That doesn't mean we'll get 40%. And our E-rate consultant, who is probably one of the leading E-rate consultants in the country, is very optimistic that we're going to get 40%. So keeping my fingers crossed. We're also going to be replacing our firewall. Our firewall hit end of life earlier this year. Firewall is what protects us from the bad things on the internet. And we're planning to replace that as well in the spring. And we're also going to replace our content filter. The content filter is used to protect the students and the staff. And we're required to have a content filter by both state and federal law. We use VMware, we're virtualized. We have about 153 servers that are virtual. That means that there's no physical device to kit when they don't work right. It took me a while to get there, but now I really love it because you can bring a server up. What's really nice about it is you can actually physically move the virtual machines to the server, perform maintenance on the server, then bring them back, and there's no downtime. We have a SAN, storage area network, that's where all the disk space is. We implemented a Fujitsu about 3.5, 4 years ago. One of the best purchasing decisions I've ever made in my entire career. The thing's just been rock solid. And the support has been phenomenal. They came out about 2 months ago. It has 23 fans in it. They came out and replaced the fan because it wasn't spinning fast enough. So that was pretty impressive. And they showed me the reports of why they were replacing it. We have about 15 specialized servers. The reason that these aren't virtualized is because the manufacturer doesn't support virtualization. For example, our HVAC systems, they're about 7 or 8 years behind the curve when it comes to technology. So it'll be a few years before they let us virtualize this stuff. We have the voice over IP phone system. The first year we implemented this, we saved the district $75,000, getting rid of 2 months that we didn't need in phone lines. And we have a Cisco Call Manager, which is a product that we pay for in the license. And I'm slowly phasing it out, replacing it with an open source product that costs no money and is virtual. So it's working very well. It's currently in 3 of the elementary schools, and it's been working fine. So wherever I can, I'm trying to look at ways to save money. Learning management systems. Right now, these are the 4 main ones that we use in the district. And let me talk, we're going to talk a little bit about these in depth. Moodle is an open source product. Does everybody know what a learning management system is, first of all? Okay, good. Moodle is an open source product that's been around for a long time. It was developed by some teachers in Australia. That's where it started. Canvas is a commercial product that's been around for a few years as well. We use this mostly at the high schools for blended learning. We have some students taking classes and some teachers that are starting to do blended learning with Canvas. A lot of teachers, K through 12, are using Schoology. They're using the free version of Schoology. And then we have some teachers that have just started to use Google Classrooms. So one of the things the Technology Committee will be doing, hopefully this year, though I'm starting to run out of months, is looking at learning management systems and trying to, what we want to do is, we understand that if you go to college today, you are going to be taking an online course. Even if you're physically in a building, going to classes on a daily basis, in your 4 years, one of the classes you have to take will be online. That's just going to happen. We know that when you go to college, you're going to have one learning management system. Everybody uses the same learning management system. And there are a lot of reasons why you do that. So they're far enough along now, there are enough teachers in the district using LMSs that we need to pick a platform and standardize the district for 2 reasons. For the teachers and the students, so they're familiar with what they're doing and they don't have to learn a new system, so that if I'm in 4 different classes and I have 4 different learning management systems, it drives me nuts. And then for the parents, because almost all the learning management systems have a way for parents to go and see what the students are doing. And we want to take advantage of that. And if the parent has to learn 4 different learning management systems, I'm sure they're going to be in my office asking me why, because they're not shown. So this is one of the tasks for the Technology Committee we're going into this year. Any questions about LMSs?
So the teachers that are using them, are they self-taught?
Yes. What's really interesting, we're looking heavily at Google Classrooms. It's free, and the tools that are available for the teachers are phenomenal, just phenomenal. In fact, in the second, on the 18th, Kevin Dorsey from Pennsburg, they're about the same size as we are, is going to come talk to the Technology Committee. He's bringing 3 teachers, an elementary, a middle, and a high school teacher. They've embraced Google Classrooms like, okay, you would think they drank the Kool-Aid over there. They are just really fanatics. But they're going to come and talk about the things that work well and the things that don't work well. And I thought it would be good to bring somebody in from a different school district that has gone through this whole process already to give us a good overview of some of the questions that we need to be asking as we go through this process.
In Canvas, for the virtual classes, Canvas conducted a training for all of our teachers of virtual courses.
Right.
They did a formal
Right.
training.
So actually,
for
there
this.
is a possibility that the district would go one way, but the virtual courses could involve something else because, right? By
It's
nature of
possible.
What it is. But that's the
That
exception.
wouldn't be the. Yeah,
It's always possible, but I don't think it's.
But that's not enough of a reason for us to say we'll do what they're doing.
No.
It should,
Not-
we
not-
should
not
be
at all.
picking what works.
We're gonna,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. The idea here is whether it's a virtual course or whether it's more in the blended environment or whether it's more of a repository database type
Right.
functionality, right? Which is how it'll start out for the vast majority of students and teachers as well. We want the same interface, and we want the same training. So when you go with something that has a subscription behind it and a cost behind it, as Canvas does, as Schoology does, then training comes with it, formal training comes with it. Moodle, which has been around for years, isn't the most user-friendly tool. We know what that is, and we know what that isn't as well. In terms of Google Classroom, it's new. It's about 2 years old, I guess, at this point. So it's very much still under development, and it's exciting, but it's under development, but yet it's Google. So you have to ask yourself how much faith do you place in it, especially given that the price tag is awfully enticing.
Well, but like Nancy was just raising it, and I was having to go through my head too, and I can't remember the recent news events with Google, but they're after people's data, right? And so they have made guarantees in the past regarding them not using data, and then breached those guarantees, been caught, and had to roll back.
So that's a really good question.
It's a huge concern.
Google actually signed last year a document that states that they will not gather and collect information for marketing purposes from school districts. There's a national form that organizations can sign voluntarily, and they chose to sign that. And when they signed that, a lot of school districts that were hesitant to roll this out began rolling it out because they had signed that document. And it's gone through a bunch of solicitors. I didn't feel the need to take it through our solicitor again, but it did go through the consortium solicitor for the county. And he said that he's comfortable now that that agreement was signed by Google. The one concern I have about Google, it is free, is that a couple of years ago, Google came out with a healthcare system. And there were several hospitals throughout the country that embraced it. And they came to work one morning and it was simply gone. There were no costs involved, so that's why they embraced it. And Google just decided they no longer wanted to support it. So that's my concern about Google.
Or they may try to monetize it in the future.
Correct. Correct.
And you had one more to it. We used Blackboard, was the LMS that we used for our virtual courses last year. So.
I just have to say, I was with a group of parents yesterday, and they have a lot of concerns about Google and Chromebooks and privacy and data. So if you're very comfortable, I trust that, but you have a PR problem that you're going to have to hurdle over with the parents when you decide if you do go to Google. That's my advice.
I was a very, very large proponent of anti-Google because I don't want my data collected. And they couldn't guarantee to me that they weren't collecting it until they signed it. I can't remember the name of the agreement is off the top of my head. Once they signed it, and it was vetted by a couple of different law firms, then I said, okay, all right. So, but you're right, it is an issue, and we will keep an eye on it. The technology committee has been, these are the primary things that we're going to be working on. The technology design standards. So we split into two groups. The group that was looking at technology design standards has come up with the revised design standards. Those will be, what's going to come out of the committee is going to be kind of a 5-year technology plan for the board to review and approve. And in that will be the revised technology design standards. So the design standards focus on what we expect to find in any educational space in the district. So once the board approves these standards, the next logical step would be to go out and inspect those technology spaces. And if they don't have what they need to meet here, come up with a plan to implement so that every educational space meets those standards. Okay. We're also working on technology standards that involve for the curriculum. For example, ISTE has published standards K through 12. And they say things like when a person leaves kindergarten, they should know how to use a mouse. When a person leaves first grade, they should know how to do this. When a person leaves third grade, they should be able to do this. So the committee has started that process. It is kind of difficult because of all of the different curriculums and where does it fit. But it is a process, and I'm not sure. We're going to take a break, I think, for a month from that, and then we're going to go back to it again in March. And we're going to do that as a large group. I was talking to Tom Range, who's heading up that group, and he thinks that we're ready to get together as an entire group and kind of break out a little bit and talk a little bit more about where we need to be. This is going to be a little more difficult because when we get to a point where we think we've got something that works, remember that we have administrators and teachers on the staff, so it's not like a bunch of us geeks working on this stuff by ourselves. When we get to a point where we think we're ready to go, then I'm going to bring in the curriculum coordinators and let them poke holes at it because they're going to find things that aren't going to work that we haven't even thought of or looked at. And so I don't anticipate having this done by May. It's probably going to stretch on into the next year a little bit, but I'm okay with that because I'm going to get it right.
But at this point, there's no real curriculum for technology in the elementary school, right?
No, there's no formal, to my knowledge, there's no formal curriculum for technology in the elementary schools. That's correct.
So when classes are going into the computer lab for their specials, it is entirely teacher-driven on what
Yeah.
happens there?
It's entirely teacher-driven, but let me tell you what I found the teachers are doing with their kids in that classroom. So, in the elementary school, the teacher has a lot of different subjects that they teach. So what they'll do, this is what I found, is that if Mrs. Smith is taking a class in there, she'll have a group of some kids that are a little behind on the history portion. So she'll put them on a website that looks like a game. Some of them look like games, some of them research, and they'll work independently on that sort of thing. Then she has some people that are working on math, and they'll have them work on this stuff. And some people that maybe work on science, and she'll have them work on these things. They have a lot of resources online that they can work with the kids. So it's kind of independent. What they're trying to do is they're trying to help the kid, giving the kids opportunity to work on some of the skills that they need to increase in some of the other areas that they're working on. That's what I found a lot of the teachers are doing. They're also doing web quests, which is kind of like a scavenger hunt online.
Right.
And they're doing that for a couple of reasons. One is to familiarize them with how to use the equipment, how to browse the internet safely, how to get to websites, how to collect information. I mean, you really see what the kids have picked up when you get to the 6th grade and they do the EPAs.
Well, I'm sure great things are happening, but my point is more that there's not a specific curriculum-driven structure to what's happening in that time.
Well, if you look at all this, I'm sorry, Jennifer. Go ahead.
There are curricular activities that they're working on.
All right, let me rephrase. It's
That's okay.
curriculum-based that could be connected to something else that's going on in the classroom. It could be a language arts thing, it could be a math thing, it could be a science thing, but it doesn't mean that a 3rd grader at Hillcrest is doing the same thing as a 3rd grader in Newtown or a 3rd grader at Holland, which we would be able to say in other curriculum areas.
Right. You will find that there are activities, whether it be SRI, whether they're working on word processing or for language arts, or they're doing PowerPoint for science. The activities that are in that curricular area require a certain skill level. So to use that tool and have it identified kind of what the skill level would be. So what are we expecting for our 2nd graders who are making PowerPoints? The expectations would be is of what they're presenting, what they've researched will only allow so much. They're not expected to do certain things that we expect for our 6th graders for their EPAs, things like that. Yeah.
But things like, for example, my children who are old, I mean, they had actual keyboarding as part of their experience. I don't know if it was 2nd grade or 3rd grade.
3rd grade.
Third, then went down to 2nd.
Actually, you know what? I think my son had it in 3rd and my daughter had it in 2nd. Is that still happening?
So here's the interesting history of the keyboard. It was mandatory in 3rd grade in the elementary school level, but then we started to have a lot of problems with the software. So it was taken out of the elementary schools, and they've been looking at a replacement for the last couple of years. What they're trying to find is something that will work and is cost effective. They did find a program that they thought would work well, but it was cost prohibitive. So the committee is almost finished with a recommendation. Joe's heading up that committee. So they found a web-based product that has gotten very favorable reviews from the teachers and some of the students that have looked at it. So we'll probably see that back in the elementary schools next year.
That's great, because I gotta tell you,
grade
this
level as well.
one finger typing is not good for, those habits are hard to break, and it's not good for them in the long term.
The program actually that we were using before was you shut down the computer lab for 2 weeks, and it was excruciating the kids physically and even psychologically to be in the amount of time to be doing that. There was no, they didn't really apply the skill, they weren't keeping their skills at all. There wasn't any retention, there wasn't any application. They were going back to hunt and pack, and we were having the computer lab shut down. We limited the amount of instruction for those grades that were doing the program, and they weren't happy learners. Just wasn't a good.
Well, that just tells me it's a bad program.
It wasn't a bad program,
idea.
not a bad idea, not a bad skill. And what we were looking at, again, the program this year that we were going to go with, it was so expensive and it really wasn't a great program. So we're looking at a new one, but included Pat Erickson in there to get some, think about what we're going to hit some of the ELA skills as well.
So the state doesn't have specific technology standards at that level that are separated out from other curriculum areas?
Separated out. When we were looking at our sixth grade research, we were finding some that are embedded in the research, but nothing that really was.
Right, I mean, I know some of them are woven in that, but I mean,
Right.
nothing, technology as a standalone does not.
I don't think we're gonna go down the path of having technology as a separate. I think what we're gonna have is technology skills embedded into the existing curriculum, because it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because then it has longevity to, yes, ma'am.
So I agree, I agree that the skill may be separate, but that how they obtain the skill should be embedded.
Yes.
So it's not like we're gonna hold a separate technology time, but, so yes, I wanna say every sixth grader can do a PowerPoint at X level of complication or a Word document or whatever we're gonna say, but how they learn those skills should just be embedded into, in English we do this, and in science we do this, and
And
whatever.
we're doing a lot of, and this is why it's gonna take a little while for the standards to get worked into the curriculum, because we're doing a lot of backward math. So when we decide at sixth grade, they should be able to do a PowerPoint with multimedia embedded and
Right.
sound and all of that stuff. Okay, at sixth grade, they need to be able to do that. When you backward map, when do they learn how to do PowerPoint? When do they learn how to embed?
Right.
When do they learn that? So you backward map to the beginning and say, all right, so at second grade, we're gonna do some of this thing called PowerPoint. How do you start it? How do you end it? What are slides? Why would you do them?
Are you going to though, so you backward map and you say you have to be able to, use a mouse, so are you, but I'm curious, are you gonna backward map into the subject level? So are you gonna say they have to know how to do a basic PowerPoint with nothing else in it in English in second grade?
Exactly. And that's what
Or are you just gonna say they have to know how to do it, the teacher chooses?
No, I think what we're gonna do is try to work it into different curriculum areas.
Okay, so you're gonna name it.
That's what we're gonna try to do. That's what ISTE recommends. That's
I
what
think
some of the
this
other
is better.
studies we're looked at
I think it's better too,
is,
because you'll make sure it goes across difference, and that if the teacher's comfort zone is always doing it in English, then those kids never do it in science or social stuff, I think it's better.
But on a
perfect
broader,
example.
and in a broader view, just to have consistency.
Well,
And
yes,
I mean, that's a really critical piece.
But-
it's like, you look at Frank Murphy, who teaches at Holland Elementary School.
Wow.
And whenever he teaches math, the kids have to do a report. They have to do a written report on a character from math, Pythagoras, or whoever, because he wants to work in the other skills, the reading and writing, into the math. So, I mean, if you take the grand concept of STEM, that's really what it is.
Right.
You don't separate STEM out, it's embedded into the curriculum. And that's kind of what we're looking at technology as well. The kids don't think of it as technology. To them, if you ask a kid what technology is, they think rocket ships and lasers. They don't think computers or phones or any of that stuff, because that's what they've grown up with. So that's why we want to embed that into the curriculum itself. So it's transparent to the kids that they're learning this. We'll recognize it, because we embedded it, but the kids, it's just.
and I had another question. So we had a program that didn't work, that taught keyboarding.
Mhm.
We looked at another program, we didn't present it because it was too expensive. Footnote, I never want to hear that again. I'd rather have it presented. If you think it's too expensive, I get it, but we had $7 million left over at last year's budget. If we needed a program,
And the kids didn't have,
and that's where I'm gonna ask. So are you telling me that for a couple of years we've had no program?
No, I'm not talking.
Okay,
Type in school is what they were doing.
so we kept,
Oh, yeah. It
they don't
hasn't-
get it.
My sixth grader has not, my 10th grader and my 8th grader had it, and third grader, my sixth grader has not had it, and my third grader has not had
Parents
it. And
say
my
they're not
sixth
getting it.
grader is really nervous about
Well-
doing her EPA this year with having no clue how to use E.
either way, from my one, I'm only one of 9 and I'm clear on that, but I don't wanna hear again it was too expensive. Let us tell you it's too expensive. I mean, we bought the program that they write the curriculum in, now I forget the name of it, Barry. That, in our tightest year, because we were gonna have nothing and be behind. And so sometimes we have to bite the bullet, but I also heard you say it's now maybe not the best program, even though it's expensive. I don't wanna just throw money away, I know you're clear on that, but I'm just saying, like, we need the kids to have
Yes,
this.
I couldn't agree
And
more.
not only that, the group of parents I was with last week, they went in during Education Week, and some of them sat in their computer classes, and they said, like in third grade, every kid was uninfected.
Well, I mean, I know that, and I don't know it's consistently, and obviously it's just anecdotal, but by and large, I hear parents tell me that there is no keyboarding, there's none of that happening. So if it's available and not being used, that's different.
There's no
But in practice-
mandatory curriculum.
Right, but in practice, I mean, I think this is a very critical thing to address.
I think it may be consistency, an issue of consistency more than anything else. We had parent advisory committee on Monday evening. Matt also presented there, and we heard some of these same exact things. Moms and dads in there saying, "Oh, my child," and they haven't. I know that I've heard Joe has represented that others have. So I think it's just been a consistency issue.
Very valid. We talked about learning management systems. BYOD and one-to-one. Where we are with that is POA. So, bring your own device. Kind of wanted to make it bring your own technology. What we found consistently, two things. Kids don't want to bring devices in from home. They want to use their phone. And kids don't like devices that don't have keyboards. We're hearing that loud and clear from a lot of different districts. So we're looking at Chromebooks, which I'll get to down here. But we're exploring the concept of a one-to-one. There are no studies that show a one-to-one initiative has an impact on learning. Access to technology does, but when you go to a one-to-one, there is no impact. But we wanted to at least say we've looked at it so that we can, and evaluate it. So if we don't have a one-to-one, we can say, here's why we don't have a one-to-one. One-to-one. In other words, we would issue a Chromebook or a laptop to every student in high school, and they would have this district-issued device for the 4 years that they're there.
And where, I don't understand the comment where the research of the kids don't want to bring a device. So if we made a really positive thing, like everybody bring your laptop or bring your iPad to school. And by the way, your phones are not allowed, because the other reason I want to use my phone is because it's a reason to tell you all that I need my phone and I can really be texting my friends. So, for me, there's a little bit, you're saying there's no, kids don't want to do it?
At the high school level where we've rolled
That
out,
surprises me.
bring your own device. What the teachers have all said, unanimously across the board, kids didn't want to bring in their laptops, parents don't want the kids bringing the laptops or tablets. The kids already have their phones. They already have the phones and their smartphones, and they can use those smartphones to do, the teachers have actually adjusted their lessons and adopted different ways of doing things so the kids can use the phones. Perfect example, kids love to text. So
There she
they'll
is.
do a dialogue in class, and all of the kids are texting to the teacher their responses. Now you've gone from 60%, 40% participation to 100%, because the kids are hiding behind their phones and they don't have any problem texting. Althea, would you agree?
I do. I agree. They do use their phones. I do. I am open BOI open classroom. I also have 14 Chromebooks. So only half of my class can use the Chromebooks. I don't have enough for a full class. So I say anybody else who wants to bring theirs in, then they can have it, or we can share Chromebooks, or you can use your phone, I'm just, whatever works so that everybody has that access to technology that you talked about. And students, I may get one kid in a class that wants to carry their own notebook or laptop. They don't want to break it. They don't want to carry it in their backpack all day. They don't want to lock it in their locker. They don't like it. And in fact, the students, a couple of students came to me and said, hey, it'd be really great if we had Chromebooks in every room and I could just open it up and I didn't have to carry my device around with me. But even if they were issued a device, I don't really want to have to carry it. I wish there was something there that I could just open up and just start with once I got there, enough for every person, and that was mine every time I walked into class. But they use their phones primarily if whatever we're doing can use a phone, but they'd rather have something if they're doing a further activity, like with a project or they're building something, they want that keyboard because it's too hard for them to just do in their phone. And even though their eyes are much better than ours, or mine at least, it's hard for them to see it, to do something larger. But we'll do a lot of text activities, and they prefer the phone or the device that I have there over one that they bring.
We gotta
That's
build it
what I-
into a desk and sell it. Wouldn't that be great? Every desk had one, you just sat down and you type.
What I remember when I was PTO president at South, which is now a few years ago, but when these things came up, parents didn't want their kids. Parents were concerned about damage,
Yeah.
loss, you know what I mean? So
They still
that
are.
was a barrier, so I don't know, you know.
Which is what has led us to the concept of a one-to-one. And in almost every model of one-to-ones that we've looked at, in hindsight, the schools that I've talked to, Palisades, New Hope, Salisbury, if they had rolled out the one-to-one initiative like they had wanted to, it would have been more of when the kids come to school in the morning, they pick up their device and, home and put it back before they go home. So kids aren't lugging it to work, and if it's not a day where they need it, they never take it out of the car. We've talked about, the technology committee, my group has talked about classroom sets. So an English department would have, 2 or 3 classroom sets. Not every classroom would have it, because they're not all using it on the same day, but the department would have 2 or 3 classroom sets. The classroom set is 30 to 34 devices, depending on how many desks were crammed in the classroom. So, and the Chromebooks, the reason we like Chromebooks is because they charge and they last for 18 hours. You turn it on, it's about 30 to 35 seconds, it's up and running. Laptop can take anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. If it hasn't been turned on, the first thing we do from a security and update standpoint is push the updates through. You can't use it when that's happening. So it's made laptops almost hard for teachers to use in some of the environments, especially where they're moving from classroom to classroom to classroom. It's just hard. The Chromebooks have just exploded. Althea was the first early adopter. I put 15 Chromebooks at South this year, and I was at a community function last weekend, and I had a parent come up to me, didn't know this person, said, "You're the IT guy at Council Rock, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Love the Chromebook." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "My daughter has it in her Spanish class. That's the teacher that's using it in South. Love it. My wife went out and bought it. Love it. Great idea." He said, "In fact, my daughter said, why do I have to share it?" I put 15 Chromebooks at Goodman Elementary School because we've got some really technology savvy teachers there. 2 days after I drop them off, I get a Google Hangouts thing from a teacher, and I have 4 classrooms Google hanging out with me. These are all kids that are using the Chromebooks, and they're just thanking me for the Chromebooks. That was a highlight of the week. That was just awesome.
Just to add to that, I actually had 2 students, once they used the Chromebook in my class, go out and buy their own Chromebook because they could get it for less than $200. And those are the students that are doing their BYOD. Now they're bringing their own device because they can carry it. It's light, it's little, and they love it. So the 2 students.
$1,500.
Yeah, right. It's
And it's just a browser.
$200.
My question is, if you choose Chromebooks, does that tie you to the Google Learning Platform?
Nope.
Okay, that was-
Right now, with the Chromebook is nothing more than a browser. If you've used the Chrome browser on your Windows machine or your Mac machine, you've had a similar experience with Chromebook. In fact, if you log on with the same username and password across devices, Chrome now has the ability to remember who you are. And so your Chromebook experience would be the same as at home as it is at work, depending on what we allow. We currently have Google implemented, and we have Office 365 implemented. And once again, we're going to standardize on one of these 2 platforms. Right now, if you have a student in school, your student can log into Office 365, download and install Microsoft Office products on up to 5 devices at home, free. They have access to Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel through a browser on any platform. Google's the same. They have access to Google Docs, Google Calc, the whole 9 yards.
Why don't we put them at the board table and let the board use them?
Actually, the board president has a Chromebook at his station right now.
Oh, of course he does.
He's experimenting with.
And what does he think?
Well, let me tell you how many different ways I've used it.
I guess I'm really old school, but when we required kids to get those scientific calculators, I don't remember how much they were almost
$89.
Then they got that at 89, like, in the beginning, every kid had to have one, and we, had purchase agreements, and, there was a little tug and pull, but, the district went that way. And it went down lower and lower and lower, like, maybe it was calculus classes, and then, it
Yeah,
got to
they're
the
probably
middle
more
school
expensive
kids.
to make that class, yeah.
I don't see why any one-on-one device could work in the same kind of fashion.
Well,
Where-
we're in the early stages of investigating what it would look like in the district, how it would work, the benefits, the detriments. So, but I just wanted to mention that it's one of the things the technology committee, hopefully we're gonna get to.
But again, in these instances where you putting a set of Chromebooks or whatever out, it's teachers are volunteering, so it's the ones that have the skill set.
Correct.
So down the road, what we need to talk about is professional development that gets everybody.
Absolutely, and that's a key component to any initiative that we take. If we decided to go Chromebooks, I'm gonna have lots of workshops to familiarize teachers with Chromebooks. Right now, basically what's been happening is I would tell Thea calls me crying and says, man, I can't get this to work. And then I go over there and I help her figure it out, right? And she hasn't called me crying once this year. So, she worked out most of it. So you're right, the early adopters realize that they're on their own. And I'm asking them to tell me what I'm gonna have to do to learn to educate teachers. These are the things that are gonna go wrong. And these are the things you need to know. Like Lauren McCulley at Goodnoe Elementary School, she and I had a long conversation with me about Chromebooks. That's how they ended up at Goodnoe, because I hadn't even considered an elementary school when I was thinking about this. And I gotta tell you, the kids love them. They just absolutely love them, because that's all kids do at the elementary schools anyways, going home, so it just makes sense. Strategic planning, these are some of the things we're planning to do in the near future. Schools, elementary schools, that the switches had ended of life 3 years ago, but as I've been replacing them, I've been stacking the ones I'm taking out. So I'm not overly concerned that the switches are past end of life. Well, fortunately, the equipment that we try to buy just lasts. That's why we try to buy the equipment we do. It spends a little bit more money, but you can see it's paid off because it's one way faster than life. Wi-Fi upgrades, I said we still have 7 schools left right now. It says not been approved by the board. Right now, Rolling Hills, Hillcrest, and Newtown Elementary School are on the books to be wired for wireless this year, this summer. I'm not sure that it'll make it through the final vetting process.
And Matt, just real quickly for the board's edification here, Rolling Hills has a bit more of a question mark on it than do the other two. The other two you knew about. Rolling Hills is becoming a space issue because we anticipate an additional section at Rolling Hills next year relative to this year. And so we're trying to figure out the best way to go about accommodating that.
Right, and all 3 of these buildings will be removing the computer labs. So.
Right.
10 gig upgrade I talked about earlier. We're working on the high schools. We're supposed to be part of construction, and then the elementary schools will be over the next 3 to 5 years as we can afford to fit it in the schedule. PC refresh, we're not going to do PC refresh this summer. We're changing the process we're doing it. We're actually going to encumber the money, and then next spring, we'll get the computers, we'll test them, so that the first day after the last day of school, we can begin rolling them out. Right now, if I want to buy stuff for the 2016-2017 school year, I can't purchase anything until July 1st. And that gives me a very tight window to try and do stuff during the summer. Much better if we can do it during the summer. So we're going to shift our purchasing process a little bit. So one of my technicians came up with this idea, and I asked her why she didn't mention this to me like 10 years ago. So we continually do upgrades to applications and servers as needed. Summer is a big time when we upgrade a lot of the applications because we like to make sure things are broken when teachers come back. I'm just kidding. We like to, try to avoid that when they come back. Any questions? That's my presentation.
Public comment, did I hear that you said it will take 3 to 5 years to get the entire all the elementary schools wired?
That's my long-range estimate right now. I have to work with Doug on this. There are other construction projects in the district that will be occurring. So
the district has a plan maybe, possibly, to eliminate computer labs, bring the computers to rooms that will not be internet Wi-Fi capable.
absolutely not. No. If we decide to remove the computer lab in a building, that building is wired.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Okay.
But if A happens, then B happens in conjunction with it. But A right now is an unknown.
And what is the cost to wire the 7 elementary schools?
Mr. Taylor could probably give you much better.
Is it a cost issue or capacity issue?
Well, what issue?
Cost or
I
capacity?
think it's both. It's, Doug only has X amount of dollars to spend each summer, because some board members only let them spend X number of dollars. So,
Yeah, because we don't have damn typing
I tell you what, you can
software.
tell her it's coming out of fund balance. She'll
Don't
do it-
start with me.
She'll do it in a second.
We're gonna have
But-
beautiful wired buildings and kids with no brains. So don't.
No, but I would tell you, I mean,
I'm sorry.
the frustrating piece of the conversation is just hearing that we allocate resources based on skill that's out there. I know you guys are working towards a plan, and we have to move towards that quickly, and cost can't be a barrier to doing it the right way in a consistent fashion. If it's capacity, it's a whole different story. We have to figure out how we do that. But the fact that we have kids coming out at different levels of skill across the district is.
It depends on
we
where you
deserve-
sit.
Excuse me, Nancy, I'm sorry. We deserve better than that. I mean, the kids do it. And that's not to you. What I'm saying, it should be empowering to you guys to where, at least from my perspective, this is something that big that we have to take action on. So, let us make the decisions about.
And let
around
me piggyback off of that and just further frame that in a larger sense, even as large as this is, in that instructional technology is a really important piece, but it's one piece.
Right.
There's a much bigger picture out there when it comes to teaching and learning than just instructional technology. So part of our big picture, strategic planning, action planning, table setting, time setting, putting all this together as we look at what happens when, at what point do we introduce these integration specialists, at what point do we go down the road of this robust professional development for teachers and get beyond the choir, so to speak, in terms of the early adopters and the early tech integrators. We have to make sure that we don't put too much too soon on the plates of our teachers. So, because there's other stuff beyond what we just looked at here this evening. So that's the bigger picture as well, and it's a capacity issue, it's exactly.
So my question would be, are the one-off investments that we're making like this worthwhile against the whole plan versus picking off one big initiative by initiative? And that would be the challenge that I would make as we do lots of stuff, let's do less better, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it's the work
As you
before
figure
us.
out what that
It's
is.
the work before us, absolutely.
With this show, Robert and I have had conversations about this before relative to consistency across all curriculum areas. There's certain places where, or maybe it should be lack of consistency across certain
No, we've been
curriculum
very
areas.
decentralized.
But in specific to technology, because there is no curriculum guiding this, that becomes a much more glaring issue to confront. So, I would like to see that a priority in the thinking, not only in specifically setting things, academic goals or whatever it is for students across all the grade levels, but also how we approach their teacher development so that we know that everybody's in a place that they can actually deliver what we need them to deliver. We can't serve our kids well if the teachers aren't prepared for that.
There are two things that are coming down the pipe that will influence that. I have put in a proposal for technology integration specialists, which we haven't even sat down and really dived into in terms of, but I've identified what I believe, I think it's like a 4-page document of in their job description, the things that I believe need to happen. But a little bit bigger than that is this new position, the Chief Academic Officer, the Director of Curriculum Instruction, whatever that position is. One of their things that they're going to be doing is looking at the academics as a whole for the entire district. And I'm very excited about that because this will tie in 100% with their role. And more importantly, that individual will be in a position to help guide and implement what we decide as a district. So I think that that's a critical piece to this puzzle in terms of capacity that we just talked about. So
Make sure there's a computer test as part of the interview process.
No.
So that I think will help us move in the right direction.
But that curriculum integration specialist was part of last year's budget for a
And the
short
year
time.
before, and the year before.
So what's different in what you put together for this year versus how it was proposed previously? Or
I I think that there are more receptive people to it now than in the past. It's always, what it always boils down to at the end of the day is a budget. You have $10 to spend, and you can only spend $10. So everyone wants to augment their staff in terms of areas that they need to. And I can tell you why it wasn't approved last year, why it wasn't approved the year before. And I've been part of that decision process. Math specialist or technology integration specialist. I picked the math, I voted for the math specialist as well because I thought the impact on the kids was going to be a lot higher.
But I would like to just say, to echo what Wendy has said, because there was a very large element of this last year. When we're presented with these things and the wish lists and the budget, I would like to see an opportunity for more board discussion about it, because what happened certainly last year was that decisions were made.
Left them together.
Right, that, you know, that the administration made some assumptions on what the board wanted or whatever, and maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong, but it wasn't right for me in specifically with some things, and you know, I was just one person, so maybe it would have gone that way anyway. But the thing is that as we approach it going forward, I would just like to see more opportunity to have input and talk about that, rather than it being like an assumption, oh, the board won't want this, or the board priority is someplace else. I want to make sure that that is really true before things happen, before it gets to us.
And I agree, because especially again this year, just like all recent years, there's this choice between tax increases, use of fund balance, and cutting programs. So we have to always focus in budget season that we're making choices. And if we don't see what our options are, it's not really explicit what choices we're making.
Right, but I want to be able to have the conversation, and I don't want the assumption to be, that's too expensive. No, the board will never approve that.
Yeah, because we saw that in Robert's presentation of what would I do with, was it $2 million? Okay. And if no one makes a case, then you've already lost. You basically said you prejudged, and so making that case is what allows, God forbid, a tax increase to occur, because you have a reason, there's a motivation, there's a value to be captured from it. If you don't make that case, it's not going to happen. It's going to be cut.
Well, I think it starts with the expected outcome, though, and then we have to provide what we expect that outcome to be, and then see what it's going to take and be provided with the opportunity to have those conversations.
Make an argument as to what outcomes matter. I mean, we don't just say this is the outcome we want.
Right, because I mean, it would be very simple to say, if we were to start, the outcome is we want no tax increase. And that alters the entire conversation. If we start with at that point of an outcome, it may hurt us.
Well, let me rephrase that. When I said an outcome, what our expectations for the performance of our kids might be, or the things that we value, the goals that we set for ourselves academically.
Okay.
And then be able to have,
that I can agree.
and then be able to have a good conversations about the choices to get there.
That's fair.
Denise, I have an email that we sent to Barry and Joe. Did we address all the questions that you had? I just want to make sure that we did that. Do you want to?
I think I know what it was.
Okay.
I was thinking in my head, did we cover it? I mean,
Okay.
I think we covered it reasonably well, but it really, I was concerned. I wanted to make sure that this conversation tonight was not so much about hardware and equipment and the infrastructure. This is academic standards, and I wanted it to be, make sure that we were talking about the teaching and learning. I think we've touched on it enough, and quite frankly, it probably needs a whole other night, because I think the needs there are different and large. And maybe as a follow-up to whatever's going to come out of your technology committee, it'll be a good segue. So the answer is, did I get all the answers? Definitely not. But did we touch on them enough for the moment? Sure. But this is an ongoing, this needs to be an ongoing priority.
So can I ask what the timeline is for the new program for keyboarding? That's not going to be till next year? There's no way you can get it in the schools this year?
No.
No. because of cost?
No, it's not cost. So we don't have identified a program right now. What happened was, in the summer, I learned about a program that we were considering starting for this year. By the time we had people take a look at it, the very first input that they gave me from what the schools that looked at it, that we had 4 schools look at it, they said it's not a good program at all. Not only is it very costly, it's not a good program. So we started looking at programs, and we've identified one. We're going to get a chance for some schools to take a look at it.
Will there be a plan to get this program, whenever it is in place, to all the kids who have missed having this as part of their education?
There are free web-based programs that the kids can use right now.
That the teachers have?
Yes, they can use it.
But will there be, can there be a push to implement the free web-based ones until you get whatever is in place?
I've made note of that.
Let's.
It's a
We're
big deal
taking-
with
no,
parents.
it is a big deal. With all due respect, we have other big deals as well
I'm sure.
as we look over the next couple of months, and I just want to be sensitive to those as well.
Yeah.
So Mr. McClay and I, in working with the elementary team here, we'll take a look at those. I believe Mr. McClay has an elementary principals meeting coming up here shortly. And we'll engage Mr. Frederickson in those conversations certainly as well. And so if there's a logical, reasonable extent to the maximum of whatever that is, we will do so. But what we don't want to do is rob Peter to pay Paul. And
No.
so it becomes an issue of competing priorities in the short term if we're looking to just put a Band-Aid on something. So we don't want to do that, and we all understand that. So what we're the big picture piece is a long-term solution that will begin from a fiscal standpoint on July 1 with the new fiscal year, and in reality with the 2016-2017 school year. And at that point, will there be a catch-up provision in terms of students who have been allowed to advance without accessing and gaining and acquire some of these critical skills? We owe it to our kiddos to do that. So yes, that will be front and center. So point certainly duly noted. Thanks, Nancy.
And Dr. Fraser, the program that we are looking at wouldn't be a 3rd grade program. It would be for kids across all
What grade would it be?
all grade levels.
Okay,
Mhm.
good.
That's great. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, Matt, for a very thorough and detailed conversation. Tip of the iceberg. Thank you so much.
Good.